I thought I would get started by sharing with you Ross Gay's Book of Delights. I'm sure that this is gonna be backwards. I'll just read the preface as part of the video. One day last July, feeling delighted and compelled to both wonder about and share that delight, I decided that it might feel nice, even useful, to write a daily essay about something delightful. I remember laughing to myself for how obvious it was. I could call it something like the Book of Delights. I came up with a handful of rules. Write a delight every day for a year. Begin and end on my birthday, August 1st. Draft them quickly and write them by hand. The rules made it a discipline for me, a practice. Spend time thinking and writing about delight every day. Because I was writing these essayettes pretty much daily. Confession, I skipped some days. Patterns and themes and concerns show up. For instance, I traveled quite a bit this year. I often write in cafes. My mother is often on my mind. Racism is often on my mind. Kindness is often on my mind. Politics, pop music, books, dreams, public space, my garden is often on my mind. It didn't take me long to learn that the discipline or practice of writing these essays occasioned a kind of delight radar, or maybe it was more like the development of a delight muscle, something that implies that the more you study delight, the more delight there is to study. A month or two into this project, delights were calling to me, write about me, because it is rude to not acknowledge your delights. I'd tell them that though they might not become essayettes, they were still important, and I was grateful to them. Which is to say, I felt my life to be more full of delight, not without sorrow or fear or pain or loss, but more full of delight. I also learned this year that my delight grows, much like love and joy, when I share it. So let's talk about loitering, which I'm sure if you haven't read by the time you get to this video and you want to pull it out, I recommend reading it. I have also sent you an audio clip of Ross Gay himself reading it. As I'm sure you can tell from the preface, Ross Gay is a wonderful person. He is a hilarious performer. He's very funny. He's very bright and happy and fun to listen to. I had the luxury of seeing him read live this essay, the recording actually that I sent you, I was present for, and that was last year in Oregon, and I've loved this book ever since, and I thought that he is such a wonderful writer who's developed a kind of practice that shows us like why writing can be so instructive and helpful for our psyches. If I were to divide this essay into parts so that I knew how to tackle my own imitation of it, I would start with part one, the anecdote. The anecdote is about telling a little mini narrative. We like narratives as readers. They bring us in, they give us a reason to care because they give us tropes that matter to us. They give us a hero and a protagonist and antagonist and a voice, and we're used to them because we read books and we watch TV and we watch movies, and we know that stories have a resolution and we look forward to that. So setting us up with a kind of narrative introduction is so useful. So we can just call that part the anecdote. I was in a place doing something. I was sitting in a cafe in Detroit. I had ordered a coffee. And I saw this thing that is going to remind me of an idea that I'm going to spend the rest of the essay expanding upon. A short essay is, instead of a memoir, which is about a true narrative, that's what a memoir is. It's a narrative, it's a story, that's something that has a beginning, middle, and end, but it's true. A short essay is about expanding upon a topic, expanding upon an idea. And so in this case, Ross Gay is expanding upon the idea of loitering and bringing in things from his life to teach us about why loitering is important to him and why we should care about this concept. But it isn't a story. He doesn't go through something and land somewhere else. but he can trick us into thinking that we should care about it by starting that way, by starting in a once upon a time. Once upon a time, I was in a cafe in Detroit. We instantly care. We instantly want to know what happens. The second part would be the definition. He establishes his own definition or set of definitions, and then he also talks about the dictionary definition. He looks it up in Webster's dictionary. By having both of them there, we understand that they're meant to be compared to one another, and we can think of one as the definition that is more real, that is more true to us, that matters more to Ross Gay, and then we can think of the other one as this kind of like institutional definition, right? Because it uses language of institutions, of schools, of governments, right? That's what definitions are for. They're meant to be plain, and they are meant to be unbiased. But this is the kind of essay that teaches you that definitions are never unbiased. Somebody writes those dictionaries. The point of the definitions is to meditate between how we understand this concept personally and how the institutions that support our culture understand them. And that leads us all to the next section, which is the cultural commentary section. Cultural commentary shows up in this story, starting with the paragraph, for instance, the darker your skin, the more likely you are to be loitering. And as he's talking about racism, he is weaving through his own experiences that have to do with loitering. I mean, he never really veers off topic, but he does continue to expand upon the topic, usually with more anecdotes, like saying, I've been shushed with a group of non-white people who are laughing hard in a Qdoba in Bloomington, in a bar in Fishtown, in the Harvard Club at Harvard. The shushing perhaps reminds how threatening the order our bodies are in non-productive, non-consumptive delight. Pay attention to the pacing in this story. Pacing, I would say, is a really worthy craft element to discuss that we didn't really get the chance to talk about as much in class as I would have liked. Pacing is the amount of space on the page you are giving a topic, the amount of sentences you're giving a topic. Pay attention to that in this story, because he really is just expanding on the same idea over and over and over again, but just with a slight edge, going in like a slightly new direction with a slightly different reference point, which brings me to the next section, which I've called the reference point section. He took us to something else that he knows. He took us to a Carrie Mae Weems photograph of a woman in what looks like some kind of textile factory, with an angel embroidered to the left breast of her shirt, where her heart resides. He knows that photo. He already knew that photo before he started writing this essay. It's something that's familiar to him, but the concept of loitering made him think of that photo. So when you're imitating this, take us to your reference point, something that you think of that is brought up by a concept that you're expanding upon, right? What is your reference point for that kind of difficult concept? And then he allows us to take this expanded upon definition, right? This definition that leaks into his cultural commentary and apply it to an example. He's teaching it to us. I mean, that's what I do in class. I teach you a craft element. I give you the definition of that craft element, and then we work through it with a piece of writing. Deconstructing this essay into sections will allow you to mimic it for a concept of your own. So when you're going to do your own version of this essay, when you're going to do an imitation of Ross Gay's loitering, think of a concept like loitering that has broad cultural implications. Feel free to use things from your life, things you can connect us to. It's a good time to write about delight, to write about things that make us happy. And we can see that that's not shallow, not to Ross Gay, and it doesn't have to be shallow to you either. I think that he still has happiness at the end of this essay, even though it's about a lot of dark things. And I think that you can achieve that in your own writing too.